Hello and welcome to another episode of Nothing Definitive. My name is Sam Carlson, and today I want to talk about challenging enlightenment. If you've watched any of my other videos or read my blog at notdef.com, you will know that I am very interested in this notion of spiritual and intellectual enlightenment, the idea of bettering yourself to an almost obsessive or extreme degree of just becoming more than you are and understanding existence and life and all those sort of things. And there's a lot of just profound and amazing moments when you're pursuing it, and there's a lot of beauty to kind of perfecting your mind, I guess, and there's a lot of beauty in Buddhism and Zen and the happiness and contentment that comes with it, and meditation, all these things that make you a better person, right? But there are some problems, and that's what I want to talk about today. It's important to challenge enlightenment at the same time that you're pursuing it. And I want to start with not overvaluing your experiences. And this kind of ties into being less certain about your progress in enlightenment and being skeptical about enlightenment. So it's important that when you're meditating and you experience some sort of new emotion or some sort of profound like happiness, that you don't take it too far. And basically what that means is, for instance, I was meditating a while ago and I experienced this like really intense happiness. And at the time I was thinking, wow, I think I experienced like this perfect contentment, this true happiness. Like I felt like connected with everyone, and I could have met anyone and just been their friend, been like they were like family to me, and it was really profound and it was amazing. I don't want to trivialize it, but at the same time it's really important that I take a step back and say, okay, that was amazing, it was great, I wish I could feel like that all the time, but I need to be skeptical. Maybe just because I've never experienced that before, it seemed more profound than it really was. And the reason you should do that is because if you don't do that, you become too certain about your progress. And I think one of the requirements of enlightenment is to always be challenging yourself and saying, I don't know enough. I haven't completed anything. I will literally die with with no knowledge of really what's going on. I'll do the best I can to get as far as possible, but I'm probably never going to finish this journey. That's kind of the unfortunate reality, is that you have to keep challenging yourself. You can't be like, oh yeah, so I did that meditation session and I experienced this perfect happiness and now I've completed that portion of the enlightenment. I've gotten that far. I'm enlightened now. No, no, no. Well, the problem with doing that is that you like restrict yourself. You're basically putting limitations on your progress now. You're saying, well, I don't have to try this type of thing anymore because I've already done it. I'm enlightened in that area. It's just so important that you continue to challenge and you continue to say, no, I'm not good enough. That sounds terrible kind of in a way, but really that's what you're doing, is you have to just keep saying that I need to be better and better and better, because honestly, I don't think the journey ever ends. There's always something more to learn. There's something to take your current knowledge and think about it some more and say, huh, I didn't know this. I mean, oftentimes I run into things where I'm like, oh, it seems like, oh, I've figured it out. Like I've reached the end of this line of thinking and this is the conclusion. And then months later, literally months later, I will suddenly stumble on new knowledge that invalidates that previous line of thinking. That's why my blog is called Nothing Definitive, because every time I come across something that seems quote unquote definitive, months later I debunk it, and it's just like it's never ending. You can just keep going and going and going and going, and there does not seem to be a end to it. So because of that, it's really important to just be skeptical, to be less certain about your progress. The next problem is, I'm like right now I'm reading a book, and I guess I won't say what it is because I have criticisms of it, but the book is great in some ways. There's good points, there's things to think about, and that's awesome. But the problem with the book, and the only thing I'll say is it's about Buddhism. there are assumptions they make, and there are things they say without really backing it up. So they'll be talking about these things about being a better person and being open-minded, and that's all great. But then they'll say something along like, everyone is interconnected, or they'll say, um, you'll be reborn again or something. And I always just read those and I go, why? Why are you saying that? You don't say what you don't say what you mean. You don't break it down. Like those are red flags. When people talk about, oh, I experienced interconnectedness with the universe and stuff, but they can't explain what that is. That is a red flag. That means they experienced something that was very bizarre, but the fact that they can't sit down and define it, like I've never heard a good explanation of what interconnectedness really is. What are you saying? You can't just say that you felt interconnectedness and then not be able to describe it, especially when you experienced it months ago and you've had time to think about it and you still can't define it. That is people will say like, well, it's beyond words. No. No, it's not. You just can't define it. Like you haven't either thought about it enough or you didn't experience interconnectedness. You experienced something else and you labeled it interconnectedness. That is a red flag. And it's further debunked by the fact that there are scientists that I've read articles and stuff by like rationalists and scientists who say like, well, there is stuff in science that is not interconnected, or like dualism. Like it seems like everything is part of this dualist structure. But then there's things in science that they say like, well, this isn't dual. There's nothing that's like a dualism with this thing. I wish I should have maybe got examples because I have this memory of reading stuff like that, and maybe if I can find them, I'll put them in the video description if I can. But either way, they talk like I've read things about where they say that there's things that are not part of the dualist structure or not part of interconnectedness. So like, what about those things? Like, it seems like oftentimes we use these terms to simplify some really complex thing that's happened to us, or some really just the complexity of the universe. Like, everything around us is so damn complicated. So we create these words that like simplify it. But what about the things that aren't part of that definition, but still are part of the universe? Like that is just a problem that you can't ignore. So anyway, the point is don't get wrapped up in this idea that you have to experience interconnectedness. That might not even be a real thing. Or that you have to understand dualism. Maybe it's not even a real thing. I mean, of course, we could be wrong too. Maybe the fact that we can't, like, there's things that are quote unquote outside of interconnectedness or dualism, maybe that's just because we haven't found the other property. Yeah, you could be right. But that doesn't matter right now. What matters is that you're skeptical of it and say, don't just get caught up in this desire to understand it, or because what I've found is there's a very natural flow to learning in life. You don't need gurus. You don't need to understand these terms that people throw around. You just need to understand what you know, and then you need to take what you know and iterate and learn and learn. You don't need anyone else. Like it's good to have information, but you don't need anyone else to tell you things, basically, is what I'm saying. Like read and learn and watch lectures, that's great, but you need to figure it out, okay? And in fact, I think even having a guru or something could hinder your progress because they might tell you things that you're not ready to hear. Like they tell you something to think about, and it's like like you could have a topic that's comprised of all these other mini topics, and if you don't know all the mini topics, you can't truly understand the core topic. And if they tell you the core topic too soon, you might just be caught up in trying to figure that out without all the other information. So what I found is there's just this natural flow to figuring things out. And that is like the best way to learn. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's what I wanted to say, is just be skeptical of enlightenment, because maybe even enlightenment itself is just another illusion. It's not a real thing. It's not like some elitist thing where your mind gets separate from everything and you get interconnected with the universe and you become this godlike entity or whatever it is. Maybe it's just another illusion. You're just putting yourself in this mental state that's very happy and content, and that's great. It's not like it's a bad thing. Maybe you can only ever experience different states of illusion, and you'll never really experience truth, at least not in human form. Um, and that's fine. I mean, if it makes you a better person and more happy, that's great. But just be aware that not everything is part of enlightenment, and not everything should just be believed, and it's easy to get caught up in that trend, I guess. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up before I start rambling in all sorts of other directions. So that's basically what I wanted to say. Thank you very much for listening, as always. Yeah, see you next time.